Hello, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven. If you've ever wanted to discover or awaken your inner genius, well, Colin and Kelly are here to tell you how to do that. Hey, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven, where we bring to you the best people to talk about how to get the best out of you. And today we have Colin and Kelly talking about how to discover your inner genius. So, Colin, Kelly, thank you for coming to my show. You just roll. Don't worry about it. We're live. This is one of the. This is what happens on live stream. So we just roll with it. So how are you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
Good. Okay. Sometimes we have a little lag in the video. Yeah, I can hear you okay. There's a little bit of a lag, but don't worry. This is live stream world, and everybody that's listening or watching or will listen or watch knows that there's always technical issues with this, so we don't have to worry about it at all, and I just roll right through it. So yeah, so you are out there showing people how to become a genius. And what I always thought about this in the beginning was, well, you're either born a genius or you're not, and if you're not, you're screwed. But in reality, your philosophy, your program is based on that we can actually increase it. So speak to that point about how this came about.
All right. Well, good. Well, again, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
And so we both work for a company called Genius Inc. And basically at the core of Genius Inc. is exactly what you just said, that most people think that you are born a genius, it's a luck of the draw, and either you have it or you don't. But that's not true. And it's not only that we don't believe it's not true, it's just not true, because genius resides within everybody. It's just there to be discovered, pulled out, and put to use. So, once that's a very important step. Once somebody actually gets past that first concept that, hey, you know what, it is something in me, and maybe I can exhibit some genius characteristics. That's when it starts blossoming. And one of our biggest ideas is that, look, people are easy to point out genius in others. Mm-hmm. They go, oh boy, that was a genius thing to do, or that was the famous person, or that, look at that, scientist, look at that person from 1,000 years ago. But they're reluctant to say that for themselves. But if you start, displaying genius things that people have done in a nice, gentle way, they say, you know what, I kind of feel that way too sometimes, or I've done that sometimes. So it's a real matter of if you can narrow down what we have is we've reduced genius down to 24 characteristics, and I shouldn't say we have. Yeah.
But it's a good point. It wasn't we Genius Inc.
I wish we're not that much of a genius, but back in the, I guess it'd be the late 70s, early 80s, there was a Dr. Barrios, his name was, and he did a lot of research on trying to discover what is it that makes a genius. What are the qualities of a genius? And I brought some of this article here, just I want to make sure I get his wording right.
Yeah.
One of the very things he said is most people have the mistaken idea that geniuses are born, not made. That's the point we already made. And he goes on, there are traits that anyone can develop. It makes no difference how old you are, how much education you have, or what you have accomplished to date. Adopting these personality characteristics enables you to operate on a genius level. So really, by identifying, go ahead.
So no, I like that because I first of all, this is doctor research. This isn't just some guy with a foil tin hat saying, I think I've discovered it. This is actual based on scientific research by a doctor. And then to the point that I brought up earlier, he's dispelling this idea that you can only be born with it. And then he further broke it down into 24 traits that if I start to begin to adopt or emulate in my life, it's almost by adopting it and kind of concentrating my attention on doing genius things, it's almost like I kind of awaken that magic genie within me to become a genius.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it.
Yes, and for example, the first characteristic, and in his writings, he didn't say that one was more senior than the other, or they were written in any kind of sequence. But the first one he talked about was drive. One of the characteristics of genius is they have strong drive. They have a project, they go on a given course, and they get that project done. And anybody at any time throughout their life can think about a time that they had drive to accomplish something. Anybody. So that's why this is it's a common sense, workable concept that I did have drive. I don't know, to get my high school diploma, I had to have drive. To save up money to buy my car, I got drive. To finally to get down on my knee and ask the woman I love to marry me, that took some drive. So people, the key is.
It's true at any point in life, because you can see a 2-year-old who has drive and a 98-year-old who has drive. The 2-year-old
that's a great point.
School on top of everything to get the candy out of the top of the cupboard.
Right.
And they have drive at every point in their life.
Right. So that's just one of the 24.
It makes a lot of sense. Well, I feel genius because I named my show Growth Driven. So drive is within the title of my show. So I just felt like a genius right now.
Exactly.
But there you go.
So you have drive.
Yeah. But Kelly, you bring up a good point, which is about children. And I know that we talked earlier before the show that reaching children with this message is important to you guys. It's going to be part of future programs and plans. I think it's important, and it just hit me that, wow, if every parent knew these 24 traits and then acknowledged that trait or those traits when they appeared in their children, it's almost like they'd be fostering the growth of those genius characteristics.
Yeah, you just said something so smart, because we talk a lot about people fostering it in themselves. But you're totally right that parents can do that with their kids and validate when they see these things being enacted in their kids and congratulate them on what they're doing.
Yeah. I have 4 kids, and I could, tell me about it. but fortunately, I was very fortunate to get 4 really amazing children. So I'm blessed in that regard. But I can see myself now really upping my parent game, knowing these traits. And then when I see it go, like my youngest son, Rowan, he just started karate classes. So I could say, hey, Rowan, that took a lot of drive on your part to go to that karate class. I really want to acknowledge the fact that you're driven within yourself to go learn karate. All of a sudden, it's like I've awoken 1/24th of his genius capabilities in that moment.
Yeah,
you got it.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yep. Yeah, and again, I from my experience talking to people about it, they often believe it's easier to see it in others than it is themselves. So that's something we're going to work on. And our big goal of Genius is to basically make a genius world. That's really probably the simplest way you can say what our mission is, to create a genius world. And if we could raise everyone's genius level 1/24th, like you just said, that would be on a worldwide scale. There would be an improvement everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's a goal that everyone will win from. And so, like you said, for the children, our first we're directing the message to is children. So we're going to put together a children's book, which is going to demonstrate them on a more personal, young reader level, so for them to get it. Because sort of the mission of that part of the project is to we believe if there's genius children today, there'll be a genius world tomorrow. That's one of the big goals.
Love that.
Yeah,
I love that. And I think that really speaks to a lot of people. I think, there's people out there that want to change the world. How do we change it? Yeah. And I think there's broad agreement that if we educate children, then the world will become better. I think that's a universal concept. regardless of religion or race or gender or ethnicity or country. I think we can all agree on if we, educating children's good. And if we do that, we make the world a better place. So tell me how
you're right that sometimes there's weird conflict around doing good things. There's not always broad agreement on how to go about doing something good. But this is a topic that doesn't really have any enemies. It helps everybody. No one can really object to it because it helps everyone. And
it's a universal quality, regardless of where you're from or what your status. It's a genius.
No one has more than another. It's
100% universal. And here's another one. So we talked about drive. The fourth one is knowledge. And I'll read parts. Well, let's read the whole thing. The fourth genius characteristic is knowledge. Says geniuses continually accumulate information. Never go to sleep at night without having learned at least one new thing that day. Read and question people who know. And that's it. Again, just like you said with if you note in your child, they manifested drive. Well, good. You can do the same thing with knowledge. And yes, that does mean, it could mean getting your PhD in engineering, but it can also mean, you know what? Hey, you just figured out how to ride your bike. Good job. You just gained some more knowledge. So
it could be all four of your kids in the car asking you questions at the same time.
Yeah, without you going crazy.
All four, because they're all asking you.
Yeah, and today it's actually easier to access mentors and knowledge. I mean, we've got podcasts that people give out for free. We've got YouTube. I mean, I learned how to cook amazing meals on YouTube. I've learned how to invest on YouTube. I've learned how to do real estate deals on YouTube. It's an incredible amount of knowledge out there for us to learn.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're in an age now where knowledge it's eternal. It's everywhere. You could almost say, I came from the world of education, spent an entire career there. What is the teacher's place in a world where a student can find any information on his phone faster than you can teach it to him? It's something we have to deal with. That there's knowledge everywhere, and everyone can take full advantage of it.
Absolutely. So let me ask you. Yeah. So you plan. So is the book for children on these 24 qualities? Is it completed yet, or are you still in progress on it?
We are in the middle of it. I guess we can see we're about 2/3 of the way. We want to be very specific. We have each of the characteristics is going to come with a story which highlights somebody from the history. Maybe they're well known, maybe not so well known. That really exemplified that trait.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For example, for knowledge, the story is about a woman by the name of Sor Juana Inez. And she lived in colonial Mexico. And why knowledge for her? Well, it turns out not a lot of people know who she is, but if you do some, because she was in the 1600s, I believe. Her story is amazing because at a time when women were, discouraged from learning, or if they did learn, all they were supposed to do was read the Bible. She had this strong urge to just find out more, to read. She got anything she could get her hands on, she could read. She actually ended up joining a cloister, becoming a nun. Many things, so she could avoid, getting wrapped up in the life of a mother and just be able to devote her entire life to reading. And she accumulated what many think may have been the largest private library in the New World. So, yeah,
for a not wealthy woman.
Yeah, she became well known. So it's stories like that I'm trying to dig up and find these facts. And your wow is exactly right. When people at first they go, "Who's that?" And when the time they're done, they go, "Wow!" Now I get why she's somebody who represents knowledge. Part of her story is that she became the assistant to a viceroy in Mexico. The viceroy is basically the representative of the king of Spain. So she had an audience to the royalty there, and somebody wasn't sure if she really if she was all she was cracked up to be. So the king gathered 40 of the wisest men in Mexico, all the scholars and the ministers and the priests and the people who study astrology, and they quizzed her. They said, "Okay, let's find out if she is what she says she is."
It's like if you picture the one person playing chess against 20 masters to prove that they're the master against all 20 at the same time.
Yeah, and she did it. She for every question she had a brilliant answer. She went back and forth with them. So there's stories like that. They're just unbelievable. How come I never knew that before? So she's the story about knowledge. So, the goal is, and okay, so the story is written that way, and then we have an illustrator. Okay, the illustrator is just top notch. He has captured the dynamic, the energy, everything you want to see in a fully illustrated. It is a children's book that captures everything I just described. So it's gonna be a beautiful book. 2/3 of the way through it. Maybe that's sort of a long answer of your how much the book is done, but there's your answer.
Okay, great. So now, when the book is published, I'm sure it'll be sometime this year because we're doing this in March of 2021. What are your plans to get this book disseminated and known and used? And are you going to translate it?
That last question is great.
That's a super important question.
Yes, 100% it will be translated. Again, the goal is a genius world, not just a genius, English speaking world. The goal is a genius world. So, like for example, right now some of the translations are already happening in Spanish. Okay. So Latin America, Central America, we're already putting together the book for that part of the world.
Great.
Yeah.
And as far as getting the word out, we're all avenues are open. We're gonna do podcasts. We're make a social media presence grow. We're gonna get into. We're building a website. We're starting to reach out to more and more people like you who love the genius message and help spread the word, because we want the world to know about genius, not to make money, but to make the world a genius world. Period.
And it validates also what you do for a living, because the marketing, the message not shared with anybody is only as valuable as the message is to one person. So we'll do all of the normal marketing that you would do for a book, with publishing, with social media, with ads, with emails, with all kinds of things to get the word out. And like Colin said, podcasts and shows like this to make it known. As soon as we get closer to launch, then we'll do a full tour like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think, also, in thinking about this, because obviously being a father of 4, being a humanitarian, someone who's worked on projects like, trying to improve mankind in various ways, I think that also you could get kids being your influencers. They take the book and then set a good example with one of the points, going, hey, I'm doing karate, I have drive.
Yeah.
I have a quality of a genius, and using TikTok and Instagram as a way to get kids to reach out to kids and teens to reach out to teens.
You're announcing our secret plan, and we haven't even announced it yet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, that is the plan.
Genius is everywhere, and we want to highlight it. We want to make people, if they do something genius for their community, for their neighborhood, for their family, we want to know about it so we can tell the world what they did.
Yeah, and like you said, via kids, via librarians, via teachers, museums, all of those groups.
Yeah, absolutely. I want 4 copies as soon as it's ready, so I can give it to actually I want 5. I want each one for my kid, and I want one for me, so I can step up my parenting game.
Yes, done.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay,
so,
that's sort of, any conversation of genius relates, number 3 does them. And now that, what we're doing, it says, keep your feet on the ground, but have your head in the clouds. Strive to achieve great things, not just for yourself, but for the betterment of mankind. So that is a genius trait, and that really says a lot what genius is about, for the betterment of mankind.
That's great.
And it's so
now,
beautiful when you think about it related to
yeah. Is this a nonprofit organization that you're establishing? Is this kind of like tell me just organizationally, like how is it, so people donate money, or is it just financed through book sales? Like how do you, if I could just get into that a little bit, is this, if somebody wanted to make a donation, do you have a nonprofit organization that people can donate to?
It's being set up. The legal side of that we'll probably have to answer another
Okay, good.
time. The spirit of it is a nonprofit organization, and it'll be funded
Okay.
through book sales.
Yeah, it'll be definitely a humanitarian, an organization with a humanitarian mission. Period. To make the world genius. That's the concept.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So tell me, Kelly and Colin, how did you two arrive together on this project? Tell me the story of how you ended up being the people that were going to advocate this as an important element to help mankind?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'll start with, so like I said, I've really spent, 28 years of my career in the education world, being a teacher, being a coach, being an administrator, running a school, really hands-on experience from cleaning the bathroom to running the school. I've done everything in education. So children and education is what I'm about. In the course of doing that, I often had messages I thought were important or ideas I thought were important. So I ended up writing a lot of newsletters and, advices and holding parenting seminars and workshops and, speaking to thousands and thousands of kids and hundreds of parents. And, it's just a love of mine. So some years ago, one of my articles caught the interest of a gentleman by the name of Bob Duggan. And Bob, he is really he's the spirit behind this genius drive. It was when he came across them, he said, you know what, this message needs to be brought to the world. So one of my articles made it to his attention, and he reached out to me and said, hey, you need to, I would like you to come work for Genius. And at the time I was still working at the school. I said, yeah, that's, thank you for the nice words. And, I've got I'm in school right now. Yeah. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, I reached back out to Bob and said, you know what? I know you have this genius, and I think the right way to go with it, the next phase of Genius is to go to direct the message to children. He said, well, that sounds great. Let's talk. And so I showed him, I wrote him a story. I showed him some simple illustrations. I love it. Let's do it. So that was my launch into it. So he's just been very, supportive. Say, let's do it. Let's get the word out to the world. Let's get the word out to the children. And it's really fired him up to he interacts with children. He has lots of children. He has influence with a lot of children. So it's been right up his alley. And as it's kind of a segue into Kelly. I've known Kelly all my life as well. Fellow educator, fellow parent, fellow, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty, maybe you can
I suppose it's a similar story, because I also was a teacher and educator and then worked in marketing for the last 15 or so years. But missed being a teacher and missed having the job with a purpose. And I had been reached out to a couple of times also by the company asking if I was interested in doing some marketing. And as soon as the moment in life made sense, where it could line up, where I could align working with an intention and a purpose for something like Genius, along with what I actually do for a living to survive. And I have kids and everything like you do also. And the moment that happened, it was perfect. So I started around the same time as Colin, and then reminded Colin of that letter he had gotten from Bob and said, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Why don't we do it together? And so that's how we did it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So you obviously both of you have extensive backgrounds. So you've been walking this path for a very long time.
Right. And by the way, I've came across as an educator, I came across the Genius, the 24 characters myself, I don't know, some 20 years ago, and started using it with my children. And I'm sorry, with the students of the school, not my children, but the students in the school. And even when I became an administrator of the school and a director of the school, it became part of the language of the school. It's like, hey, all you teachers, you all need to be geniuses, and because we need to be making geniuses. And, so it became part of the DNA of the school, for example.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yes.
It's nice to hear that there are schools out there that actually have the purpose to make a genius, and not just a guy who graduates or a girl who graduates.
Yeah, that's right. Part of a genius, if you go back to the derivation of what a genius is, you get gene, you go back to derivation, has something that produces, and also it goes back to sort of a guardian spirit if you go back to the derivation. So, genius really at its core, you have the genius quality, should be somebody who produces and somebody who makes something. It's not just
it's validating the spirit. Meaning, it's not you're born with it or you're not born with it. It's not a genetic thing you either have or don't have at birth because of the actual genes in your body.
Right. And by the way, and I'm being a sort of an educator guy, a science guy. About 10 years ago, some findings were in the field of genetics. some findings were made that sort of revolutionized this concept that backs up 100% the genius philosophy. And what I mean by that is, for forever, people kind of thought that your gene, your DNA was like a blueprint for who you were going to be. Once the blueprint was set, that was it. Okay, so you're going to be these are all your characteristics, and that's where you're going to be from birth to death. Well, again, starting around in the early 2000s, they started realizing, you know what? There's more things happening to genes and DNA than we thought at first. They actually can be influenced by the environment and by the person themselves. You know, I've read some studies recently, some scientific studies recently that talk about, like, for example, free will having an influence on your genes, your DNA, your characteristics. And to me, that's a beautiful marriage of, you know, this psychological, philosophical, and now scientific concept that, you know what, you do have a say-so in what you can be. So genius, again, is not inborn, and you have or you don't have it. It's something everyone has, and you can develop it and make it work for yourself. Yeah,
good point. I think our intentionality has a direct effect on our capability. Versus
that's exactly
I'm
right.
born with
exactly
capability.
Right.
Yeah.
So starting with that basic concept, if your intention is to be a genius, okay, good. Well, here are the 24 things you need to do. Good. Take your intention, applying to these 24 things, and start building yourself up as genius. That's very well said, what you said.
Yeah, thank you. So now going forward, tell me how you've implemented this. I mean, I know you're doing the book. Have there been programs in the past where you've implemented it, and in what way and what effect did it have?
Well, let's see. So back to Bob Duggan. Part of his, when he discovered the characteristics, some of the companies he ran, when one of the companies ran in particular, he decided, you know what, I'm gonna push this into my company, have my employees, and get them not just, you know, not a memo passed around and put on their tables every morning, but we're gonna actually have workshops. We're gonna play games out of it. We're gonna talk about genius. We're gonna talk about everyone increasing their drive, increasing their curiosity, increasing their patience, increasing their honesty.
And making it like the company culture, the actual company culture.
And he, you know, short story, he was an incredibly successful entrepreneur. The company he did this in, you know, exploded in value. And that's, you know, part of the way he made his success was pushing the genius culture into this company, and that helped him make it a success. So, you know, that's not one of our programs, but that's a program that really, for Bob, said, you know what, this philosophy, this concept has bite. This will actually work. As far as projects, we're developing a lot of projects that go along. When the book starts being promoted and when you see it's on coming out, there'll be a number of, you know, community action things, projects, prizes.
This book is sort of the launch.
Yeah, this is the launch into the world.
Yeah, I think that what you're going to find is a situation where, although you're making this book for children, as parents take their children through it, then they themselves will go, wait a minute, I can use this in work. It's kind of, we go in the back door, if you will, and all of a sudden they start to realize, you know, although there's been some controversy lately, which for whatever reason, Dr. Seuss, like I grew up with Dr. Seuss, and my mom bought me the books, would read me the books, and, you know, it was just kind of a way of, but these sayings you would hear other people use, not just with their children, the cartoons and things like that. And I think that there's going to be, as some of these books are being walked away from, we're going to be looking for new material that we can put in the hands of parents and go, okay, so maybe you don't want that book, but here's a new book. I think there's going to be a vacuum there of reading to children and teaching and homeschooling. I think that could be also another big opportunity. Is
I think the last year changed that also, because parents were homeschooling their kids, reading and reading stories and getting involved in their education, for some of them for the first time, probably homeschooling them and having them at home doing online schooling.
And nobody, once you introduce the idea of genius to anybody and you have 30 seconds with them, nobody is allergic to the concept of genius. Nobody has a reason to go, oh, I don't like that, or no. universally people go, oh, really? It's easily taken, and you can see the little light in their eye go, oh, well, just that little awakening is you just open the door to their genius coming on strong.
Yeah, it's like, who wants to not become a genius?
Board games are for ages. Yeah. And for things that are like for ages from 4 to 104, and you see it printed on the board game, the same is true of this.
Yes.
It's a kid's book, but the message is for everyone. It doesn't matter how old they are.
And this is maybe not a very important point, but the characteristics given in the children's book are the actual characteristics. They haven't been rewritten. They're not being changed. They're presented as they were written originally. And the stories are being written. They're not fiction. They're actual factual stories, and they're being written in an attempt to show the true genius of these people in a way that they're easily assimilable and go, wow, I didn't know that before. So they should be. And by the way, at the end of each story, we're not just giving them just here's information. At the end of each story, we're going to have a call to action. For example, they read the story on idealism. And at the end, I'll say, okay, so what do you want to do what could you do in your community to make it a better place? Good, go do that. Very simple action like that. And that's part of it. So there's an action, not just reading happening in the book too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope that maybe you could come out with Genius Awards, where you have an annual banquet and you bring children from around the world and you hand out 24 awards where you find the child who best exemplified applying that practical that you gave them, that lesson.
I hope we see your kids there. I hope all 4 of your kids are there.
And and you know what we have a long list of things we want to do, and that's one of them for sure, because it's in every community, it's in every house, it's something that everyone should be acknowledged for. So you're exactly right. Yeah,
it is a universal message. I mean, the minute, as we spoke to earlier, the moment you say, let's educate children, and particularly I think parents are going to be open, like, make your kid a genius. You can make not the school. We're going to empower you as a parent to make your child a genius. To me, that's like, I feel like I'm now doing what I'm supposed to do as a parent. I mean, versus, well, I hope the government teaches my child. I hope the school teaches my child. I hope the system, versus if you empower me to make my child a genius, it feels like I'm wearing my hat in the best possible way.
And you're not teaching them some math trick where they can do mental math.
No.
So many digits in their head. It's actual genius.
And by the way, the parent who teaches their child genius is a genius.
Yeah.
So, they're like you said, it's kind of a backdoor way, and again, this is just the first iteration of the first part of what I'm doing. After this book, more is to come. We have ideas for videos and big presence on the internet. So this is just, you're catching us at the very beginning of this, and hopefully we'll meet again in 6 months from now, a year from now, and we'll say, hold on, because you can't wait to hear what's coming next.
That's awesome. I hope that we also get into drug rehab and criminal rehab, because these people lost their pride along the way.
Yes.
But if they could somehow awaken and spark and reignite their own pride and go, wait a minute, I have some of those qualities. Maybe I'm a genius, and we start to change their own mindset, maybe they'll walk a different path in life.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Again, it's universal, and nobody.
It is.
It's universal. It really is, and it can go anywhere. It can travel far. That's what's really nice about it. And the more friends you make, the more people. Well, can I have some of that? I want to take that to my community. I want to take that to my state, to my country. It's a great message, and we're very happy to be part of it.
That's awesome. I can tell that it's very much of a passion project for a lifetime. So, Kelly and Colin, let's say we take the next 5-10 minutes. You kind of tell me about maybe some aspects that we haven't covered about the project that you would hope to speak to in this interview. Share with me maybe some of the things we didn't cover.
You want to start?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we covered it pretty well.
You did.
One thing we didn't speak very much about that I feel like we would be missing something if we didn't is on our illustrator. and the person who's creating the book. And we can show you a tiny sneak peek, maybe.
Yeah,
Of
please.
what the inside of the book looks like. But our illustrator, anyone who's my age, grew up watching movies that he was the storyboard artist for. Every movie from my childhood and yours, probably, we grew up watching all of these same videos, same movies. You can see it a little bit in the illustrations. So he's amazing. He's from Disney, from Pixar, and from DreamWorks.
Wow.
And
yeah, he's the real deal.
He's quite remarkable. The illustrations bring the stories to life. So Colin is writing the stories. He's the author, and he takes the stories. Also, having been an educator for this age group for so long, he knows how to talk and write in the way that they will love to read, and that's the right vocabulary that can be absorbed by anyone. So you can take, these are deep concepts, and you want to get a deep concept into someone at any age so that they can understand it.
Yep.
So the illustrations, he takes them, like, you'll notice these are just sketches. These are not the final illustrations. These are his sketches.
Yeah. This is a dummy book, mock-up. We're still, this is, when we first got this book, we were so excited, like how awesome it is. Now here we are a month later, going, oh my gosh, it's so much better now.
Yeah,
anyway,
a lot has happened since we printed this.
But to the point of the illustrator, I don't know how well you can see this, but here we have. So here we have, that's Louis Armstrong. The individuality of Louis Armstrong, and again, a true American icon, a true pioneer whose individualism carried the day, made him who he was. So the challenge of the illustrator is to really capture the enthusiasm and the life and the individualism of Louis Armstrong. So that's a great point. He's a really top of the line illustrator and
storyboard artist. So he takes the story and tells the story with the images,
right?
Which you can't see fully until it's done, but I hope you do. When we finish it, you'll definitely get some copies so you can see.
And because of who he is and what he does, his skills are easily going to lend what he does to putting into video, video form. So
I can see.
That's another thing on our list to do to make it awesome.
Well, I think there's a way to repurpose that content in multiple ways. I mean, you can turn it into videos, and those videos can then be disseminated through Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Moreover, they can be turned into memes and, little quote images for social media, right? So I think there's a way to take that beautiful artwork, because I think that's so important to what you're, that aesthetic wave band, when it really reaches a level of uniqueness and beauty, it just opens up the sensory channels to want to learn even more.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the goals of the book itself, is to present them in such a way that the reader has a clear as concept as possible of each trait, of each characteristic. They have pictures that show them what they're doing. Each word is easily understood. We could have a glossary. We're making sure there's maps, etc. So it's not going to be a theoretical understanding of what they're done. It's not going to be just a borrowed understanding. It's going to be a full owned understanding of the concepts.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And I like how you think about it in terms of all of the marketing. All the marketing dovetails exactly with the book, which is how you think. But you're totally right, because the website, the social media, the book, they all kind of become interwoven. Not just with the images, but also with like the genius challenges that are in the book that will happen on social media, and you'll see them on the website, and you'll see the award winners and kids featured there who exemplify these traits. And all of that kind of comes from the book and then comes out of the book into the other places that we'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, I think marketing for me, it's already, you can tell I do podcasts and videos, so I'm already in the marketing world. And I think that way. But I'll tell you, one of the original reasons why I got into marketing so many years ago is I had this epiphany while in college that no matter how good you are, no one will know unless you effectively tell them how good you are. And marketing really is the means in which to create something and communicate something so that people want it. Not just, hey, I built the better mousetrap, so what? If they don't know it exists. So I felt that marketing for me was a tool to leverage, a technology to leverage my ultimate goals. If I didn't know it, I wouldn't get my goals achieved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and this is a message that we want the world needs to know. So you're exactly right.
Yeah. So this is something we need to leverage in terms of technology, but, hence why we have to also be just as good of, in terms of communicating.
Yes, for sure.
Well, great. Well, I know that my partner and I, Barry, the one who introduced me, we're very interested in this project. I'm really excited for this. I think this is just going to be, I'm really excited about how it's going to unfold. I'm excited about getting the book myself and getting it to my kids. And if I'm excited about it, I know there's going to be millions of parents out there who feel exactly the same way. If I can empower my kids to become a genius, I'm doing the best parenting job that I could ever do.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah,
Great.
exactly right. Yep.
Well, Kelly and Colin, I really want to thank you for being here on Growth Driven. I'm sure that, when the book does come out, we'll do another interview and then we can talk about the actual book. So whether that's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever, we'll circle back. You can actually show us the completed product, and then we'll also include links for people to be able to purchase it. And then we can, just do a whole show on that. But until then, I wish you guys the best of luck. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. You guys are heading a so needed, exciting, and life-changing program that humanity needs. So thank you for your time and care to this.
You're very, very welcome, and thank you for your time.
Us. Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
All right, guys. Well, this has been another edition of Growth Driven, where we try to bring to you the best people, to bring you the best ideas, and hopefully in the future, you're going to learn how to unlock your inner genius. Until next time, we'll see you then.